Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech and this is the unboxing and the complete review of the Realme C15 after a month of usage. So guys, here's the box. Now before we get started, here's the pricing information. This phone is available in two variants. Base variant is priced at 10,000 rupees for 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage. Next variant is priced at 11,000 rupees for 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. It's available in two colors, Power Silver and Power Blue, and we have the Power Blue color. Now the main highlights for this phone would be a massive 6000 mAh battery, 18 watts quick charging, along with the basic essentials like a bigger screen and a fingerprint scanner. So this phone is not targeted for everyone, it's mainly for people who want bigger battery with fast charging support. So before we talk more about it, let's have a quick unboxing. So here's the box, and on the front it simply says C15, and on the left side we have the complete name, that's Realme C15. On the right side we have once again the same thing. At the top we have the Realme branding. At the bottom we have some specifications along with the box contents, pricing and so on. On the back side we have the most highlighting features, that's mainly the battery, quick charge support and so on. Now without any further delays, let me just open it up. First we have a small envelope, and inside that we have SIM card ejector along with some documentation. Next we have the phone itself. Let me just put that aside. Next we have an 18 watt quick charger, and following that is a micro USB charging cable. Now let me put everything aside and come back to the phone, and let me remove this plastic wrapping as well. So guys, this is how the phone looks on the back, and this is how it looks on the front. Now let's have a physical overview. On the back, this phone has a plastic back panel with a 3-tone finish, which definitely looks pretty different from other phones. Back panel also has a bit of a texture to it, which can give you some extra grip. On the top left corner, we got the quad camera setup along with a single LED flash, and beside that we have the circular fingerprint scanner. At the bottom, we have just the Realme branding. On the front, we got a 6.5-inch display with a mini drop notch, and above the display we have the earpiece, and below the display it's completely plain, and the chin is kinda big for the price. Now for the sides, on the right side it has the power and volume buttons which are made of plastic. They have a nice clicky feel to them. I wish they were a bit more elevated. At the top it is completely plain. On the left side it has a SIM card tray housing 2 nano SIM slots along with a dedicated SD card slot. Finally, at the bottom we have the 3.5mm audio jack followed by the primary microphone, micro USB charging port and the speaker grill. Now this phone has a thickness of 9.8mm and weighs 209 grams. Now these are the complete specifications. On the rear, this phone has a quad camera setup with a 13MP primary camera with f2.2 aperture, followed by an 8MP ultra wide angle camera with f2.25 aperture and 119-degree field of view, followed by a 2MP black and white lens and a 2MP retro lens. For selfies, it is an 8MP camera with f2.0 aperture. On the front, it has a 6.5-inch IPS display with HD Plus resolution with 450 nits of brightness, protected by a 2.5D curved Corning Gorilla Glass. Under the hood, it sports a MediaTek Helio G35 processor with PowerVR GE8320 GPU with up to 4GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 64GB of storage along with a dedicated SD card slot. Right out of the box, it will be running Realme UI based on Android 10. Powering this device is a 6000 mAh battery that supports quick charging, comes with an 18 watts power adapter inside the box, and also supports reverse charging where you can charge other phones with your phone and use it like a power bank. So guys, those were all the specifications. Now let me turn on the phone and set it up and come back to you in a second. So guys, this is how the phone looks once we turn it on. Now let's check the about page. This phone is running Realme UI based on Android 10, and right out of the box it has a July security patch. And out of that 64GB of space, we get about 49.3GB of space for our user apps and user data, and out of that 4GB of RAM, we get about 2.4GB of RAM free right out of the box. Now before I start the review, here are the benchmark scores. Now as for the review, I'll start it off with the design and build. So as I've told earlier, the back panel is completely made of plastic. It has this gradient geometric design, but besides that, this back panel actually has tiny patterns all over it, which gives us some extra grip, resists fingerprints, scratches, and also has a splash resistant design. Overall, definitely a pretty good choice from Realme. Now as far as in-hand feel goes, Phone definitely is pretty thick and it has a weight to it. Weight management is kinda bad, so right out of the box you can feel that the phone is pretty heavy. And another major reason for that would be that massive battery, and the overall weight of the phone itself is about 209 grams. And that's without a case. And once you put on a case, it might go up to 250 grams. I wish Realme could have done something with the weight distribution. And that's gonna be the only con in this section. And Realme couldn't do much about it either because we do get a bigger battery on this phone. So there's really no solution for this. Now for the hardware department, this phone comes with all the basic sensors. You also get Bluetooth 5.0, which is pretty great. This phone also has a dedicated SD card slot, so no matter which variant you get, you don't have to worry about storage. It also has dual SIM with dual VoLTE. This phone also has a pretty decent haptic engine. It's not good, it's barely average, but overall haptic engine on this phone is slightly better than most phones in this price segment. It is slightly on the softer side and that's why it doesn't feel too horrible. Next, this phone also comes with a pretty fast fingerprint scanner. It almost unlocks the phone instantaneously. And every time you use the fingerprint scanner, whenever your phone unlocks, you also get a subtle haptic feedback, which is a great addition. This phone also has the face unlock feature and it is super fast in good lighting conditions, just like other Oppo and Vivo phones. Even in low lighting conditions, surprisingly it works pretty well and it is pretty fast as well. It even works in complete darkness but takes like a second to unlock the phone. So overall in the hardware department, I really don't have any complaints. Now for the display, this phone has a pretty decent 6.5-inch display with a mini drop notch with HD plus resolution. I wish it had full HD plus resolution considering the screen size, but even HD resolution doesn't look too bad on this phone. For normal usage like making calls or using applications, browsing, or even while watching videos on YouTube or Netflix, display is pretty good and I didn't notice any lack of resolution. Color reproduction is good. Even the brightness in indoor lighting conditions is pretty great. This phone has a maximum brightness of 420 nits, so sunlight legibility is also pretty decent. Unless you are playing visually intensive games like Asphalt 9, you will definitely not notice any issues with display. For smaller games and regular media consumption, it's gonna be great. By the way, this phone has Wideband L3 certification, so you can't watch high definition videos on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but so far in my usage, I didn't find it to be a major issue. Now for the cameras, this phone has a quad camera setup on the rear with a 13 megapixel primary camera and an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and the rest of the 2 megapixel cameras are just for improving the overall performance, but they don't offer you any extra features. For selfies, it has an 8 megapixel camera. Now here's the camera interface. We can switch to the wide angle camera using the button over here, and now we are using the wide angle camera. Next, we also have portrait mode for both the rear and front facing cameras, and we can also change the amount of background blur effect you get before taking a shot. Next, this phone also comes with a dedicated night mode, and we can use the night mode for the rear camera and even for the wide angle camera. So you can take some pretty impressive pictures even in low lighting conditions. Next, we also have the chroma boost mode, which makes the colors look a bit more popped out. We also have slow motion video recording and some other features for the rear camera. Now as for the front facing camera, there aren't a lot of features. We just have an extra panorama mode for the front camera, which allows us to take a wide angle selfie. So guys, these are all the camera related features available on this phone. Now these are some sample shots. Shots from the primary camera are slightly to the cooler side and the colors are a bit too saturated, but dynamic range is pretty good. Images from the wide angle camera tend to be on the warmer side, so colors are also a bit warmer, but dynamic range is once again pretty good. Overall, rear cameras do a pretty decent job, with color slightly being on the saturated side. Now for selfies, they look a bit too bright and skin tones look too softened. Overall dynamic range is pretty good. Overall you do get good selfies, but I wish Realme could tone down a bit in terms of brightness and skin tones. Now these are some portrait selfies and portrait shots from the rear camera. Edge detection looks pretty decent and you can also change the background blur effect before taking a shot, so that's a pretty good feature as well. In low lighting conditions, these cameras do a pretty average job. Even though this phone has a dedicated nightscape mode, results, at least as of now, don't look that impressive. In indoor lighting conditions though, it does a pretty decent job. These are some sample shots. So guys, overall cameras on this phone are pretty decent, but they're not the strongest point for this phone, and they're definitely not the best in the price segment. By the way, there isn't a huge difference in camera performance between C11, C12 and the C15. So among these three phones, don't choose based on the camera performance. Now when it comes to software, this phone is running Realme UI, and so far it has been pretty smooth. There are no major bugs and it's loaded with a lot of gestures and cool features that you can actually use. We also got the new navigation gestures which work without any issues. We also got the dark mode on this phone, which turns the system UI to dark theme, and even some of the stock applications and Google applications like Play Store and YouTube also change to the dark mode once you turn it on. So overall, phone definitely looks much more cooler. When the phone was first launched, it has the July security patch, and right now it has the August security patch. So Realme is also providing updates, so that's definitely a pretty good thing. Overall, I don't have any issues in the software department. Now when it comes to performance, this phone has a MediaTek Helio G35 processor with PowerVR GE8320 GPU. And it's an entry-level processor, so you really can't expect a lot in terms of gaming performance. But for a normal user, for normal usage, everything is pretty smooth and I didn't notice any kind of lag. You can play smaller games like Angry Birds or Candy Crush, that's not gonna be a problem, but don't expect too much in terms of games like PUBG. If you really want performance, you should be considering the Redmi 9 Prime or the Realme C3, which offer better performance. Anyway, that's for performance. Now as for memory management, once again it is pretty good. It can keep up to 4 to 5 applications in memory most of the time without any issues, and at peak it was able to keep 8 applications in memory. Because of good memory management, switching between applications is also pretty smooth on this phone. Now for the audio department, this phone has a single speaker at the bottom, and this is how it sounds. So as you have heard, speaker is pretty loud, it's great for ringtones, alarms, and it's definitely great for media consumption. This phone has one of the loudest speakers in this price segment. As for the audio jack, audio experience on headset is pretty decent, nothing great to talk about. Now finally, in the battery department, as I've talked about earlier, this phone is all about battery, and battery life is definitely great on this phone. Even if you're a heavy user, it can easily last you 2 days. And because of that 18 watts power adapter that you get inside the box, you can charge the phone completely in about 2.5 hours, which is pretty good. So guys, to conclude, at a starting price of 10,000 rupees, Realme C15 is definitely a great choice if you're looking for a phone with a massive battery and fast charging support. It has decent cameras and performance is also good enough for an entry-level phone, but that's it. Don't expect too much in terms of camera performance or in terms of gaming performance. If you're a normal user who wants better battery life, then you can definitely consider this phone. If you want better cameras or better performance, better look for other phones. So guys, what do you think about this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video, and if you're planning to buy this phone, use the link in the description, it always helps the channel. If you want us to make any specific video, tweet out to us with the hashtag AskGreedyTech on Twitter and we will try to make it as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech signing off. Have a nice day.